Hello, travelers. My name is Corg the Mighty with a nerdy guide to D&D, and welcome to our first ever interview posted on this channel. We're joined today by familiar faces, Lily, Callum, and LJ, as well as one very special guest. He DMs a 43-year-old AD&D Greyhawk campaign, one of, if not the largest in the US and live streamed on Twitch, hosts 3 D&D content talk shows, organizes the virtual Greyhawk convention, puts on an annual fundraising live stream for St. Jude's Research Hospital, and is a D&D dad. What's not to love? Lord Gosumba, thank you for joining us by the campfire today.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being very thorough on that background.
Of course.
Yeah, that's
Several
fantastic.
impressive
Thank
accolades.
you so very much. It's great to be here. And great to be honored to be the first interview. Appreciate it. Let's have some fun with this discussion.
Of course. Before we get into the actual questions, I first wanted to say big shout out, big congratulations. Near the tail end of last month, you guys were able to raise over $25,000.
Yeah,
For St.
25,415. Right? Yeah, 25,415.
Wow.
And that was year 5 of our St. Jude Greyhawk Mega Stream fundraiser event. This year was titled Legends. We pick a topic every year, and that's what I went with this year. And we surpassed last year's by almost $5,000. So we've raised roughly $55,000 to $60,000 in the 5 years we've done this, and it's getting bigger. It gets bigger every year.
That is
had like 12 channels join me this year, and we went from Thursday night all the way through to Sunday evening of streaming. So it was a blast. Absolutely, some great people and some generous people in the community.
And does it feel at all like surreal to hit that? Because I think like last year you also hit 25,000 as well.
We did 20,500 last year. Yeah, we put 20,000. Yeah.
Gotcha. Does it feel surreal a bit to like kind of hit that number?
I thought last year was an anomaly because year 3 we did 10,000, and I thought we'd do like 15. But when we doubled it to 20, I was like, oh, we're not going to do 40 this year. Yeah, it was going to be impossible to get that much. But I just wanted to surpass last year, and when we beat it by $5,000, I was really happy with that. Just everyone in the community really understands that it's a great cause for us in the U.S. Just such a great organization, and we have some people that really stepped up. Streamers, sponsors. I had the record number of sponsors for it. And then also all the donators and people who participated in the games. It was a great community effort, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, you started from basic box set. Now you're here.
Yeah, exactly.
50,000 towards St. Jude's over a couple of years.
Exactly. Box set. Speaking of that, anyone know what the Holmes Basic box set is?
So I've heard that term passed around, but not specifically. No, what is that?
That's the original first edition, that pre-first edition basic D&D set. It's a picture of the dragon with a wizard on the front. Yeah, it's from 78. That's where I started. Yeah,
gotcha.
It's called Holmes. There's like 3 or 4 different versions of basic D&D, and that's one of them. So yeah, yes, long time ago, and another lifetime.
Way back in, I believe it's the Monty Hall days.
Yes, and we found out on an interview where that came from, that terminology. And Monty Hall was Let's Make a Deal. If you know, it was a game show. So I had Jim Ward on, who's a huge name in the early days of Greyhawk D&D, on about, I guess, almost 2 years ago, and he told us that the term Monty Hall DM was coined by Gary Gygax, the founder himself, because Jim Ward was DMing for him in his Starship Warden series of games, and he had Mordenkainen. Gary was playing Mordenkainen, all right? And then Jim kept on killing him, and so Gary said, "You're a real Monty Hall of a DM," and that's where that term started. Yeah,
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
I love learning little tidbits.
Yeah. Oh, we learned that. That's the great thing about the interview show is we learned a lot of wonderful things that I never knew never knew that, and that was the first time anyone had ever heard that story. So yeah, one of the great things about having some wonderful people on. And this is a good start for you, right? And then from here on, you can look out and see other people. There's wonderful, wonderful people in the community, and we're not talking about just old school 1E, 5E, matter. You can really talk to a lot of different people of different perspectives on the game.
Yeah, there is a very wide breadth of people to talk to in this community, and that is fantastic. And kind of speaking more about those humble beginnings with like the first D&D box set, just wanted to kind of go over the fact that how we're going to kind of structure this interview is that each of the four of us have come up with a handful of questions designated towards a series of specific topics. So those topics might be more DM focused, they might be more mechanics focused. I personally am interested in more of the personal, behind the scenes sort of backgroundish lore that we've got going on here, because you have something, in our minds, you have something that a lot of new players still need to acquire, and that is experience. You have seen a lot of the ebbs and flows in D&D throughout time, and so I just kind of wanted to see if we could get some of that experience from you.
Surely.
So, yeah.
No problem. And I can understand that. And let me tell you something. You learn by doing, you learn by making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I am by no means a perfect DM. I don't think there is a term. I don't think there is one out there, but you'll make a mistake on a rule, you make a mistake on a range. You'll forget someone in the order of initiative. I mean, it happens all the time. And it's just, but then there's also, you admit your mistake and you move on at that point. And that's, trust me, I've made a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. You got to fall upward sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know how many, I haven't seen your group, but rules mongering, arguing. My guys are old. Let's be realistic. I mean, just put this in perspective. Who wants, I'm trying to make a little bit of a joke here. Who wants to sit around a table, and watch 50-plus-year-old white guys sitting around a table playing D&D, right? Old codgers. Think about that, right? And that's how we started when we played on Thursday nights. It is kind of amazing that we, have that, an audience watching us, but it's really endearing to me. But let me tell you, the rules arguing comes up right in the middle of the game. And that's one thing. I stream me playing with my friends. I don't stream a theatrical presentation, if that makes sense. It's kind of, and everyone goes, "Oh, that's like my game at home," and that's how we play, and that's kind of how we go about that. But yeah, rules arguing comes up almost every time, a little bit here and there. Durations of spells, or can you do this or that, or you forgot me. It happens all the time.
It's kind of hitting that balance between like kind of say hitting that rule of cool, but also adhering to some of the rules. Sometimes coming up with some rules yourselves.
Yes,
which
happens less and less. So that happens more and more as the editions go. And the way I've seen it, 1E, 2E was very structured, and there's some things that we've adapted and changed. I mean, I got 43 years of rules, so my rule books are all, if you've seen behind me downstairs, I got like 20 different binders of color-coded classes, rules, special spells, so it's not like we're just playing a game right out of the books. It's evolved. It's a homebrew setting. My partner in crime on my shows, Anna Meyer, the great Greyhawk cartographer, she calls it 1.J rules. So I'm like, okay, that's what it is. It's just, it's evolved to that much where we have a 1E, 2E system, but it's our own game at this point. Yeah.
Kind of speaking about that original rule system, when you first got your hands on this original box set, right? When you were first starting up your first game of Dungeons & Dragons way back in 1978, when you were around like 11,
12, yeah.
Yeah. I know that you were into war games like from Avalon Hill and other companies, but had you ever, well, actually, first question, in your first D&D game, did you immediately go in as a DM, or were you a player first?
I believe a DM, but it's so foggy back then because we had no idea what we were doing. No idea. Zero. And like, it probably took us a couple weeks to find graph paper, right? Because you really needed graph paper back then, and so that kind of stuff is on the box. And the basic Holmes Basic set only really goes up to 3rd level, so it was just we messed around a lot back then with characters, and from there, when the AD&D first edition came out, with the Player's Handbook, the Monster Manual, Dungeon Master's Guide, Deities and Demigods, Fiend Folio, that's a UK-based book, right? Monster Manual 2, all that came out, then the game changed, and then also, and I know you're not going to be able to see this, but, and then also in 1980, this little thing came out. This is the World of Greyhawk original folio from 1980, and that changed everything. So for me, because there was no campaign settings that we knew of back then, so we were just playing the game, figuring it out, slaying dragon, Monty Hall days, dragons, ogres, whatever monsters were in there. So
go adventure, try not to die.
Exactly. That was it.
And so what was it that, so like you started in 1978, Greyhawk came out in 1980, big kind of expansion for Dungeons & Dragons, like you said, first kind of location-specific area. What was it that you feel kept you, because that's a span of about 2 years, and then Greyhawk from there. What do you think kept you coming back? What do you think kept you from putting it down and moving on to something else at any point during that?
Well, we had other interests. There were other things we were doing. Still playing some of the war games. There was a really great box set, almost like a word game. The TSR, who came out with D&D, called Divine Right. Back then, we played that. Other games were around, and we had other interests. Plus, all the sports we did, and computers are not. There are no PCs. There's no Commodore 64 yet, right? That hasn't really hit yet. Once that comes out, that changes everything. But so just it was you could do anything you wanted or create anything that fantasy with your mind could discover. It was wonderful because it was so limitless, and that was really a great thing. But the thing of making an entire campaign setting just had not. That wasn't in the mindset at that time. Wow, I can create these different worlds and different countries and different characters. That scope hadn't expanded out yet until AD&D came out, and then some of that writing was in the original Dungeon Master's Guide. So some stories and ideas. The basic set was basic, very basic. It came with the one adventure. It was either In Search of the Unknown or Keep on the Borderlands, and then the rules guide. And I didn't even, my first box set did not even have dice. So, do you ever hear of a chit?
A chit.
A chit. I should run downstairs, but so a chit is a sheet of, and it says 1-20 on the back, 1 through 20. You cut the chits up, put them in a glass, and you pull them out. So that's called the Holmes Basic Prison Edition. That's the joke. So there's no dice in it, just chits. Yeah, I have one downstairs. So, yeah, there was no dice. First sets.
That is amazing.
Yeah, just no chits. So there, you learned something.
Yes, we're learning so much. Good stuff indeed.
Yeah, definitely. So a long time ago, and then the second set we had base dice. I wish I had them. I can't find them. I don't know what happened to my original dice because they're worth a fortune now. But those I can't find because they get mixed in with all your dice, and we have hundreds and hundreds of dice each of us. So
we need to go on a quest for them.
Yeah, I've searched everywhere for my damn first box set dice. Because I never, as you can see from the pile of books, I don't throw anything out ever. No matter what note you put down, sheet, you keep it because you never know when you're going to need it. So you got bins and bins of just notebooks and stuff
They're
down.
probably in there somewhere.
Possibly, I got to find. They're
Yeah.
probably in one of the Crown Royal bags, the old ones,
Yeah.
because Crown Royal is the perfect bag for dice, from.
Now that you think about it, I did mistake a Crown Royal bag for like an actual dice bag at one point.
That's it. Everyone
I'm
uses them.
sadly
Everyone
mistaken
uses
by the
them.
smell.
So,
Yeah. So I do want to talk about the people that you have also like created your campaign with. But
Sure.
before I get into that specifically, there was a bit of an interesting topic that popped up in my mind. For those who don't know, who are listening, back in the 1980s, primarily in the US, but also a little bit in the UK, I think, there was a wide sweep of satanic panic that hit many parts of culture, where several things were associated with the devil, Satan worship, and D&D was something hit by that. Now, you started playing in 1978, 11 or 12 years old, so you would have been around high school, college age. Again,
Graduated high school graduated high school in 1985. All right, now
yeah.
should say how
Were
old
you
I am.
aware? Were you aware of the satanic panic going on with that? Were you affected by it, or did you find out about it after?
We laughed it off. I mean, it was all around us, but none of our. That's not true, actually. One of our players, Marco, who he doesn't currently play because he moved to Ohio and he's just so busy now with real life stuff. His mother wouldn't let him play, and this is like '83, I think. Yeah, he wasn't allowed to play D&D. But here's the crazy thing: we play a second game called Aftermath, which is post-apocalyptic, like Road Warrior style stuff, which was way worse than D&D. Way worse, because it was more realistic graphic, right? It was pretty brutal. So that was the irony of that. So besides that, we all laughed it off. Our parents were all pretty easygoing with it, because good kids at school, keep your grades up. I was involved in a lot of sporting activities and other things, I was doing too. So, it was a focal point of our existence, like with our group of friends, but it wasn't the only thing we were doing, which was, kind of,
Gotcha.
yeah. So, but it's a good question. A lot of people were, but for us, not really. Ren Fair, we go to the Ren Fairs, and no issues back then in the 80s. There were some unbelievably crazy Ren Fairs in the U.S. and
Really?
oh my gosh, yeah, up in the New York State, they had one. It was in Tuxedo, New York, in the Sterling Forest in New York. Yeah, it was pretty debaucherous at those things.
That just sounds like a Fey location, the Sterling Forest.
Yes, yeah, up in
You're gonna
New
get
York.
some
So it's like an hour outside of New York City, out there. So it was just, it was a fun time. And we would dress up and go in costume. I don't cosplay anymore. But I could, off camera, after we're done, I can show you a picture from the high school days or early college days of gaming.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, pretty funny.
Speaking of, though, the people that you were kind of playing with and interacting in this community with, so in 1980, you officially started your Greyhawk campaign, the one that's been going for so many years at this point. You guys are over 43 now, right?
This is year 43. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That's right. And you see the logo on like Twitch, and here's my regular logo. It'll have the number of years on the yeah. So
yeah,
change it every year.
So my question is, like, who did you start the campaign with? How did you meet your first players? I'm assuming that was just kind of a group of friends, but how did you meet more from there? Are any of them still a part of the campaign? And also, when did you start adding in additional guests like Luke Gygax, Ed Greenwood, Todd Stashwick, all of
them? A little later.
Yeah, that's a little bit later.
All right, so 1978, I have 4 friends playing. The one that's still playing is Alan. He's been playing since day one, 78. All in junior high together. Go to 1980, 81, 8th grade, 9th grade. I meet Tim, and he's known as the ever mysterious Tim on my channel. He DMs a lot. a little off, right? But great guy, right? Yeah, ex-military, retired lieutenant colonel now, but still a little off. And then Walt and Tim came in 1980. So right there, I got three originals: 78 Alan, Tim, Walt, both 80. All three of them are still playing, right, or participating. Then Marco joined in 83, even though, in and out he wasn't allowed to, but, he would sneak out and play sometime. He's currently not playing because he's, living in Ohio. Tom joined in 86, and he's a regular still on the table. I met him working summers at a company called RCA. And then Bill, who's also known as Bill the Master Crafter, one does all the terrain sets and all the painting and all the great stuff you see on my table. He's like the rookie of this group. He's from 92, right? So think about he's been around only 31 years. And then we've had people flow in and out. Probably another, I'm going to say, dozen to 20 have played at a point in the regular campaign. Friends of friends, a lot that didn't catch on. The last one who left about 12 years ago. And he's the one, if you go onto my emotes, he's the no emote guy. So, yes. Yeah, the one that, So on the other Bill, he's the one, So he's the last one I had in the regular group. But I don't think I'll ever change unless something spectacular, because we play all in person. I don't think I'll ever change my original regular group at this point, playing for this long. So, but yeah,
and that's running multiple different adventuring groups like at the same time.
24 with them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Alan's got, on Thursday night we were talking, he's got 73 or 4 active PCs and 95 total over that time. Yeah.
Oh.
I know, it's insane, but so we pick it, but it's all in it's a campaign. It's a campaign setting, right? They're all going, and it's all crossovers and characters interact with each other. There's roughly 2,000 PCs and NPCs total. That's a guess, but that's what I think there is total at this point. Yeah.
Listen, people constantly talk about how the brain is one of the most powerful storage and computing devices out there. I think it maybe caps out at around 300 player characters. So let's see if someone can get to that level.
Probably, yes. But the funny story is we get to a point and I go, this is the last new group of firsts we're ever doing, because I just can't, So, and I said every 2 years, it seemed like I say that. And then we start up a new group of firsts. And that happens. And we did one last year. But that was a supplement in Norwell to an existing group. But yeah, so it happens every 2 years. We have a new group in. And then there's Night of Eula characters that are semi-retired, and there's ultra high level, it's just, but that's it. It's a living, breathing world, that's been created just because of so much depth, stories,
Yeah, exactly. And so my last question kind of has to do with that. My last question for my side of things. Sure. So one of the primary jokes and memes that gets passed around the D&D community is how tough it can be to either keep a group going or just get a group started in general, with different schedules and different workloads and busyness. Meanwhile, you are just casually over here just going, yep, 43 years, going on 44.
Yeah.
Ain't no thing. My question is, throughout all that time, so we kind of started talking at 1978, now kind of bringing it to the present, throughout all of that time, what do you feel in regards to the campaign? Do you still feel that same spark of excitement that you did back in 78, getting into your first adventures, or how has your perceptions and feelings kind of evolved over time towards this?
You're going to be surprised at my answer, but I think I'm more excited now than I was when I started it, because I didn't realize what I had when I started it, right? And I don't know what possessed me to log every adventure down that we did. I'm not talking about session, but every time we ran an adventure, I put it on the log. So I know exactly how many adventures I run. And right now we're on adventure number 991. So we're 9 away from that vaulted 1,000th. And we think roughly it's 3,350 sessions. That's a guess. That's a guess based on, sometimes we play 3, 4 times, 5 times a week back in the day when none of us were married and we're all in college and, in the summer. Different time than it is now. But when I got into streaming, I saw an opportunity to expand this campaign beyond my group of friends. Yeah. And that's what we've done. And now think about, I have a group that gets together one of them every 2 months, roughly, that Ed Greenwood is playing in my Greyhawk campaign. Now think about that. The creator of Forgotten Realms is playing a character of a custom class in my Greyhawk campaign. I mean, along with all sorts of other big names, like Luke Gygax, Eric Mona, Eric Boyd, Tony Winslow Brill, Eric Mengi, Anna. I mean, it's crazy how many. I had Todd Stashwick play. I mean, he's one of the big actors in Picard right now. I mean, I've had Mark Meir. I mean, just a crazy amount of people, and those are real games. They count in their campaign games. They affect the campaign, and so that just along with. And they interact. So that sometimes we'll have a group where we have my own players, 3 or 4 of them, 3 or 4 people from the community, big names, and they play together in a group. So I have 3 guys on my table, 3 remoting in from Zoom, and we're all playing together. So it's a fun thing. That's amazing. And that makes it even more exciting. And just the stories continue onward. So, and I got a lot of stories going on right now. And I love the long-term, we can talk about this later, the long-term campaign arc, where I got a plot line that's going for 20 years. Behind the scenes, yes.
Yep. I was able to listen into some of the plot line because I listened into your interview that you recently did with, I believe it was Dragon. Hour-long interview got uploaded on YouTube. I listened to some of the plot lines that you had going, especially the one with the crown.
Yeah, the crown. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I can only imagine.
That's the penultimate one that goes. That's the best story in the world because I turned a PC into a megalomaniac. Yeah, absolutely. One of Bill's characters. That was a fun one. But that was like 15, 20 years before we were streaming, unfortunately. So all I have are some fuzzy pictures in my old basement of what was going on from there. I wish, the great thing about like streaming now is everything is like gets documented permanently. Yeah. Videos go to YouTube, so we have them on Twitch, YouTube, and then I download and save every single show I do, so I have them all on record.
And people say the internet never forgets.
That's it, exactly.
Never forget you.
The internet never forgets when something bad happens too.
Yeah, so true.
I had one of my players, and this is just to show that I'm not a perfect DM, but one of my players, Stormhound, became live about a year ago because he was
no.
Oh yeah, but he came. He got over it. He came back.
Oh, okay, cool. That worked out.
Yeah. It happened. It's
and actually. Yeah, that's actually a great segue because I know that Lily had some, and Lily's up next, right?
Yeah, I'm up next.
Excellent.
Lily had some questions regarding DM-related things. So without further ado, that is it for my questions. Thank you for taking
great questions. Thank you.
Yeah,
of course. And over to Lily.
Thank you. So we were chatting a bit before we started recording about the fact that I'm a new DM. And first off, because I like asking other DMs this question, and a lot of them haven't figured it out yet, but I'd like to just ask you, how would you describe your DM style?
Oof. So I'm going to say it is being an old school 1E, 2E DM kind of categorizes me as a visual, like I am a miniature / terrain based, which is kind of like in the old school wargaming style of DM, but with a lot of we're not hardcore on like RP, but it happens a lot, and we also have deep long-term plot lines, storylines, and they may be tough to follow while watching with 20-some different adventuring groups. You got to figure out which one we're using that night. But so I'd say that's it. I'm a very My niche has always been the visual aspect of the game, and that's been what we're known for on Twitch.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say. I'm not a. There is some theater of the mind going between scenes here and there and discussion, but it's not a mainstay for my play style. But I'll say that it's different than 99% of what's going on Twitch, right? It's a hugely different type of DMing style, and the great thing is that there's no right or wrong way to play the game, or DM the game, and that's kind of where I say, do what feels right for you, and that's what we've done. And I know it works because I wouldn't have Ed and Luke come back and play multiple times. So
yeah, that's what I love about this game so much, is that there is just no, as you said, there's no one way of playing it. I mean, like my play style, for example, is just such a different style to yours, and it just means that when you're a player, like, take that empowerment to find the kind of game that's going to give you what you're looking for, which I think is very important. A lot of people don't really talk about.
It is. And you'll know you're doing it right when your group once is upset when the game has to get canceled.
Yeah.
They're back week to week, they're here all the time. And that's the challenge. I mean, I understand in today's day and age how hard it must be to keep them together.
Yeah. I'm also interested, again, we were chatting about this before we started, but as I've said, I've only ever played in homebrew worlds, lots and lots of different homebrew worlds. And could you tell me a bit about the world of Greyhawk, and also how it is changed in your universe from the original canon?
So the world of Greyhawk is a wonderful, wonderful setting where created by Gary Gygax and with Rob Kuntz, by the way, who I had him on an interview last week, which was unbelievable. He lives in Corsica now. Actually got him on finally after all these years. It has some deep story, history, and the most iconic thing. There's two iconic things about Greyhawk. Number one is the heraldry is immediately what everyone remembers, right? All the different heraldry on the so of all the different countries and personages. That's number one, what people remember about it. But the second thing is, and if you ever know her name, Darlene, the Darlene map, everyone probably has seen this somewhere. Oh, I didn't realize what this was. And that's the world of Greyhawk map setting itself, right? This still,
wow. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that itself, I was like, oh my gosh, I got a map now to the entire world. Look at how huge it is. There's nothing in it. There's some towns in it, but it's pretty much open. And Gary Gygax's phrase always was, make Greyhawk your own. So that's what I did. So my Greyhawk is different from every other person's Greyhawk out there. And here's the thing, mine diverged from published source / canon in 1980 when it first came out. So this is the only publication that was out in 1980. Now there's adventures like Village of Hamlet's out, and the Against the Giants series is out, but other setting books don't come out. The next one comes out in 83. The next one comes out in 92. There's some Dragon magazine things that change, but so mine's like, here's Greyhawk, here's mine. Mine's
yeah.
And so the Order of Ulick, which is this symbol, a group of knights in my game, was founded in 1980, and that immediately started the changeover. Because there is no Order of Ulick in any other published source setting in Greyhawk, because it was mine, and that's kind of the thing. That's the major change. So I have a completely unique knighthood in my game that is separate from everyone else's, and that's the main divergence on the question. Plus, in the 90s, the From the Ashes box set comes out, and that's by Carl Sargent, and that throws a wrench into everything, and I have to scramble to. If I want to incorporate that stuff into my game, I can't use it all because it's so different from what I've done.
Yeah.
It took me like 5 years to figure out what I was going to do with it. Yeah. So that's been a challenge. But I don't have to worry now because WotC isn't putting anything out. So
yeah, it's perfect. It's all yours again.
We don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I love about D&D is you can get a room full of different D&D players from different games, and everyone is going to have a totally unique story. There's no two games that are ever alike, even if it's set in the same world. Which I think
DMs are alike either.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true.
Little character in there, rule changes you don't like, you know, play style. Yeah, absolutely, and that's what's the joy of the game is.
I think it's definitely a testament to the game itself, because it's going to constantly keep bringing people back for years and years to come, because we're all coming to the game with our own hopes and our wants for our characters and all and that, and you can get it. You can get what you want, and you can go on this amazing adventure that is, again, totally unique to your group.
So don't ever, like, advice number one I give to listen to your players, and if they come up with an idea, incorporate it.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, this could be pretty cool. Just even if it's a little sidebar thing or an Easter egg, and they're like, oh my gosh, she put that in, and you know, and that kind of my players are vested, because I haven't made all the classes. Like my friends have done it. You know, some of the storylines are like, man, I got a block. What do you want to do next week, or you know, down the road? Yeah. So they're vested in the game too.
Yeah.
And that creates more loyalty and more, you know, fun for them. Absolutely, is to get them involved.
And that's the best way to keep them coming back as well. Like when your players are so invested, they're gonna make time to play this game with you if they can. And that kind of leads on to another one of my questions. So obviously your advice of listening to your players. Is there any other advice that you give to new and old DMs? And also, how would you go about planning a session?
Okay, good question. So we'll take the first one up. Let me do the planning one first.
Yeah.
So because we are so terrain miniatures based, I usually plan out a major undertaking months in advance. For example, the fundraiser. There's a terrible adventure, I'm sorry to say that, called This Is Puppets, okay? It is bad.
Okay.
It was written in the second edition era, and it has a bad guys, like an evil leprechaun named Freddy McKrueger in it, all right? So just think about that. Freddy McKrueger is published source content for Greyhawk now.
Wow.
Little Bo Peep, it's terrible. So Eric Mona, who runs Paizo now, if you know Eric, he was huge in the Greyhawk era in the 90s. He basically ran when Paizo had Greyhawk and did stuff in the Living Greyhawk era. He loves it when I run terrible adventures and make, you know, kind of spoof them. I did Gargoyle once for a fundraiser, and he says, you got to do puppets this year. So I got to figure out how to make this fun.
Yeah.
I get Bill to find months out. I said, Bill, I need these miniatures made, and I need Khan the Barbarian, Baron Blardo is like a vampire, like Count Dracula from Sesame Street, whatever. I need all these miniatures. So months and months and months, he's trying to find these miniatures. I also found the Zumi Warrior from the Trilogy of Terror movie from the 70s as a surprise. So it took us months to figure out, to get all them, get 30, you know, he had like, I think it's 11 different custom miniatures made for this stupid puppets. I called it Puppets and then some for the adventure, but we raised thousands of dollars that night. I had Luke Gygax, I had Greenwood, Eric Mona, I mean, just some wonderful people. Stephen Chenault, the owner of Troller Games, was in that. We were a real fun time. But that one, the special events are usually months in advance. I wanted it took us like half a year to figure out how to create a jousting setup, because there was no 3D prints of it. So that's long term. Short term in a game, we have so much terrain and stuff. In miniatures, I probably have 30,000 miniatures now, something like that. It's crazy.
Wow.
3D prints, rebirths, painted, plastics from the D&D 2000 eras where they made a whole bunch of all. So I usually am a couple weeks out in advance. I'm thinking about what group I want to play first, what levels we want to do, what group I want to play, what the plot line's going to be that ties into Greyhawk, and where I want it to go. For example, the one I'm doing right now is called The Race to Crovis, and that is from an article in Dragon magazine, Dragon 171, from a gentleman named Joseph Block, the Greyhawk Ragnar, where he creates a quasi-deity named Crovis who's asleep for thousands of years, and I've kind of tied that into this adventure we're doing. So I want to pay homage to a lot of the people who have put in hard work for Greyhawk over the years. We call it the Fanon community. Not official Greyhawk. The Fanon's better than the canon. Let's be bluntly honest.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's way better. And just some unbelievable stuff that has been put out. So I try and always, unless it's a short one-nighter, we do a lot of one-shots because, once again, I have 5 guys all on my table, all with careers, all family. So sometimes someone may not be able to make it. So I got these like spur-of-the-moment adventures I can run one shot on a Thursday. So it's a lot of, I know it may sound like a complex answer, but I want every adventure to have a tie-in to what's going on in the campaign. So
yeah,
usually I'm at worst, I'm about 10 days before out, right?
Wow.
Just planning ahead what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. Yeah, but we'll run an adventure to run 3 sessions. On average, an adventure runs 3 sessions. So so we're in session 2 of this one coming up, so it's not too bad. But then I'm running all my special events in between.
Yeah.
Like special games. I'm trying to set one up. This is last second for next Saturday, and that's been hard. I'm putting the cast together right now of we're online. Yeah, and that's a whole entirely thing in its own, different outside of the game group. Because I can completely rely on my players 100%.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I always get a bit itchy when I'm getting a bit close to a game and I'm like, I haven't quite figured this last bit out. So I can imagine for you, especially when you're used to planning like months or weeks in advance at least, thinking about, okay, this game's coming on Saturday is kind of like...
Oh, well, I'll tell you this. I am sitting like, my son has piano lessons on Thursday before the game, and I'm sitting in my car tweaking that second, of course, always. Thinking, oh, this spell would be better here, or this item for them to find would be, I'm tweaking all the way to the end too.
Yeah,
you plan out, once you get the main storyline and what you want to accomplish and set, and as you see, notes galore, and you can't like understand my chicken scratch here, right? But this is for this was for a few adventures ago, and it just shows everything that I need in my, and this is it. Every DM is different with their style.
Yeah.
What's on this page is, I know what, it's my style of playing. So, and someone else looks at that and go, what the hell's this?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, it makes me so happy, like, seeing all of like your notes, because I'm a huge note taker. Even when I was a player, and I've probably got something a little bit like that just on my computer. The amount of files. Sorry?
Don't ever trash any of them.
No, never. They're all so precious and useful. Do you have any... Yeah, that's all right. Do you have any other advice that you'd like to offer to new DMs and old DMs?
I've learned as I've gotten older that flexibility, it's okay to allow something, to allow someone to tweak or do something that's outside of your norm. So I have a player online, Little Bones 309. She's she's a great streamer. She's a variety streamer, but so she had a character a few months ago on top of a tower. She's got a bandit leap off of the tower 40 feet high, and want to jump down almost in a parkour move on top of like it was a half ogre or an ogre or something like that. I'm like, I don't know if that's gonna work, but go ahead. You need to make this roll to make this thing. And then she rolled a 20. I was like, oh, whatever. So she jumps down. So she did it, and I would never allow that to be successful with my players. But hey, it's a lot of the games. You got to remember now, in a different mindset, especially if you're streaming it. It's entertainment for people who are watching too now. So I'm going to be a little more flexible on the rules that we have set.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Now you have to take in consideration as a DM your players and who's watching.
Yeah.
And what I would say is be a little more flexible than you normally would. Now, I'm not saying that means don't have any rules. You need to have some kind of basis for this is how things work, especially combat. Here's another big one. Do not let combat drag out. That's a huge challenge, because you start having a combat that lasted, they only went 5 rounds, and it took 3-4 hours. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. You got to figure out how to streamline your combat, and I think we've done that. Because combat's fun, but it's only one part of the game. So
Yeah.
That moving.
Yeah, you don't want to be in that position where it's just like we're just hitting each other, waiting for the other person to go down at this point. It's such a killer to like the kind of flow of a game. So yeah, that's something I'm definitely still working on.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, and I'm not bashing 5e, but there's a lot of bonus action upon bonus action. But it's a bugaboo of mine. I want to know up front what they're able to do, and here, boom, 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 and they do it. So I call out who goes, go, done, next one. Not just, you got to keep a flow to it. Especially running one shots on live. The worst thing you can have is run a one shot on live stream and you don't finish it.
Yes, no, I can imagine that would cause me so much stress.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the same thing for going to a convention. That table is going to be, someone else is going to be in that table in 4 or 5 hours. They're going to, the next group, because conventions are running every, on that. And if you're at a convention, running a stream is almost like running at the convention. You have a time limit you have to do, and everything's going to take longer than you thought. So don't assume 2 combats max in a 4-hour period. 3 or 4 combats, no, there's no way you're going to get that done.
No, not at all.
And that's just from experience.
Yeah. So after all these years of adventuring in the same world, how do you keep the story and the combat fresh?
We add things. That's a good question. So I am always adding classes here and there, subclasses, abilities, and players. Like the outside, that has refreshed me with having other people play at this point. If it was just my core group of 5 guys, I think it would become a little monotonous. But that supplemented with all the other groups or people, and I love bringing new players into old school. People who've never I don't know. I'm scared to play 1E2E. That's one of my favorite things to do. Also, explore things I've gone outside the box on. Things I'm not thrilled with, but I will explore them. Like for example, Thursday night there's a big group of baddies called the Scarlet Brotherhood and Greyhawk. I like them on the eastern side of the map. I was like, don't bring them on my side of the map. I actually threw a couple Scarlet Brotherhood people in on Thursday night, and people were like shocked that because they don't just be willing to experiment too. We play test new classes and new ideas for years. Like someone will PC one and then they'll just run it through. In fact, the class that Ed Greenwood's playing is only the second one. It's called a Greyhawk Mage. It's a specific one where they the Circle of 8, which is Morning Canaan and Tensor. These names you probably know, and all the other wizards. They're like they tutelage under them, and then they have specialized spells. So that class has been in playtest like 5 years. So we try different things. I also take ideas from my friends. Like Bill has come up with an idea for a Game of Thrones style maester, which is kind of like so that we actually have that as a class. I think if we ever publish this, Bill, you're gonna have to change the name. You understand?
Yeah. We'll be in trouble.
Yeah. So, but in personal use, it's fine. But we one of those things. So we have. That's how I keep it fresh.
Yeah,
it's not static ever. It's just like a document. It's a living, breathing world where things are subject to change. And I'll change rules too. I'll change something. There's a rule that like bards have these crazy like 1st edition bards, not 3rd or 5th. 1st edition bards, you have to go through 7 levels of fighter, 8 levels of thief before you can even become a bard. And they have these crazy turtles of hit points. So I'm considering now. My guys aren't too thrilled about this. Tweaking that so their hit points aren't crazy.
Yeah.
So, and that's 43 years ago, so.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that sounds amazing though. Like just to be able to continue just building on the world is my dream as a DM personally. I that's what I want in the long run.
Just starting. So you have an unlimited palette now of.
Yeah.
You just gotta write everything down and just, and I'll tell you, the number one advice I can give you as a DM is never retire characters.
Love that.
That's not crazy. That doesn't mean the character themselves retires and goes off and is running some organization. That's not a retired character. That means you put the character away and you don't use them ever again. That's a big difference. Those characters now create your upper level characters that they may send the lower level characters on adventures, but they seek advice from those characters. That's what we've done. That's how you build and build. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, going to something that we briefly touched on earlier on, I hear a lot of people often refer to the DM as a referee. So, have you ever had to deal with quote unquote problem players, and what is your advice with dealing with the issues that may come up?
Yes, the last one who left I talked about did not play well with others. It could have been personal issues or whatever, but sometimes you need to cut ties, and it's part of life. You'll never, and we've had this, you're never going to go through and have the same group of players forever. Real life situations come up, and you got to deal with them, whether there's two players that do not get along. I have two online personalities I cannot bring together on the same stream. Okay, no problem. I can deal with that. You need to be able to mitigate like those argument issues and put a stop to them immediately. And it's a lot on stream, especially. All right, I'll tell you a story. I had a physical altercation once, not for me, but two of my players. At night, I had a guy who was kind of one of those min-maxer types. His character died. And he was like, well, but I'm going to lose a point of Constitution. I'm going to get raised. And then the table went deadly silent. And both these guys don't play anymore. And a guy on the far side of the table just said the word, "Where?" That was it. He got up, furious, ran around the table, and attacked them. This is
oh my gosh.
Yeah, yes. This is the night. This is over 90s. And then it got broken up real quick.
Yeah.
But like both of them don't play anymore. That weird, strange stuff will happen in your games, and you gotta. And we've been good with this. You gotta think about everything. You gotta think about who you're putting together in a group. Whether you got someone who may be like over aggressive, and we haven't even discussed this. And I have not had this, thank God. Male to female. You gotta think about all that. And it's a different time. It's a much different time now. I think people are much more respectful than they were back in the old days. But every little thing can happen. Expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
We've all heard of incidents that have happened on live stream where people have ruined their careers over something really terrible. I mean, a lot of things have happened, and I've always said to my players, if you do something wrong and you apologize right then and there and then put an end to it as well. You say, look, that was stupid of me to say, I'm sorry, and then you move on from it. And Anna Meyer taught me that. We had it happen once or twice in like 5 years of streaming. Someone said something they shouldn't have, but it's part of life. I mean, no one's perfect, right?
Yeah.
You have to take in consideration people have different agendas for playing and different personalities, and sometimes they're not going to mix well, and sometimes there's going to be an argument on the rules, and as a DM, you have to immediately put an end to it and put the kibosh on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's always quite terrifying, especially being a new DM, thinking like, okay, am I equipped to be able to deal with these things as they happen? But in order for a game to survive, you've got to learn when to put your foot down as a leader.
100%. You have to. And what you say has to go at that point. And if you're wrong afterwards, you say, "Look, I made a mistake there, but we'll come back from that." And I've had it happen. I've had everything you could think of happen in my game.
Wow. Yeah.
In that time frame. So.
So we were touching upon this earlier. So you have some people that are playing online, some people that are here physically. What are the differences and etiquettes for both of those things in the same room?
There's really not any. So because of our style, and I have multiple camera angles, as you've seen put down on my table, I have to move the cameras a lot. It's a lot more when people are online, right? It's different when we're streaming it and people are seeing it, they see the general, what's going on, that fine. I have to move them a lot more. That's the number one change ever with people online. They need to see where your character is and what they're doing. But I think I've mastered this. I don't know of anyone else who does it where we have players in person and online at the time. I just, because of the play style, I think I can get it to work. Yeah, but I love bringing in people from wherever, and having them play and experiencing the game remotely. I'm glad I figured it out. And COVID was the big reason why I figured that I hadn't figured that out. That was it. Because for 6 months, my guys were all playing remotely, and then I'm moving stuff on the table. Now my table's 8 foot by 8 foot, so when I'm by myself, I have to limit to the head of the table to be able to move things. But it works because my players that are remote understand that they can interact with those people just like they would interact with people that are in the theater of the mind game. It just works. I'm really proud of that I'm able to mix and match.
Yeah, because I can't think of anybody else that does that at all.
I never even thought of that, but I'm probably one that, our fundraiser game on that Saturday night, I had people there in person and remote in at the same time. So
yeah. And my last question, of course, I've got to talk about all the minis and the sets and all that kind of stuff. So that is, for me anyway, when I was watching some of your work, it's one of the most standout things that sets you apart from other people that stream D&D. And I'm sure many DMs like me will agree that it makes us a little bit green with envy when we see all of the stuff you get to play with. But how do you take care of your collection, and what equipment do you find absolutely necessary for your game?
So when I moved into this house in 2013, I fell in love. This is gonna sound crazy, but I walked downstairs to the basement like, this is it. It runs the entire length of the house, and if you've ever seen, I have bookshelves running both lengths. Yeah. I got like 40 different bookshelves down there, and I got an entire area. It's perfect. So we have everything shelved up except the plastic minis, which are behind me in boxes because it doesn't matter with them. All the terrain is up, all the 3D prints are up, and 3D printing in the last 3 years has changed the entire dynamic. I'm up to 8 sponsors, and the sponsors really help too. I mean, it's not cheap, right? We all know that, and it's a shame because I think more people would enjoy playing with it. And even if you're playing with a mat with dry erase markers on it, and put miniatures on it, that's cool. That's the way I did it back in the 80s. Right? We had unpainted lead miniatures that came, Grenadier and Rail Partha back then, and that was it. I mean, you barely had any of them painted. For example, we require every PC to have their own custom painted mini. Every single one has that, so it's unique. But that has been that's my number one niche. Is we want to be the top visual DM game on Twitch. Period. That's what we want, and that's why we see the arenas and the jousting terrains and the entire cities on the table and the water settings and all, and that's our in niche, and from there everything else is a bonus, right?
Yeah.
But it's timely. It takes a lot of time, right, to have that. But we got 40 years of accumulation.
Yeah.
Stuff, and that's why we have so much. I'll show you at some point down there. I'll show you all the shelving and how it runs the entire length of the hall. It's just one big room, but it's basically a hall running into the game area where we play. And now I got 2 machines. The one thing was, number one thing is my machine right here is brand new, but I was lugging my full desktop up and down the stairs.
Oh gosh!
Every time I streamed downstairs for like the last 3 years. Yeah.
Wow.
That was dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, exactly. But now I got cameras down there. The only thing that I take down to both now is my Stream Deck. That's the only thing I have to haul downstairs. I also have a remote case laptop because at Gary Con I'm going to be streaming like 5 to 8 times there. Yeah, I got a remote set too. But the number one thing is have and C922Xs for Logitech they're fine. They're fine for streaming. I stream in 4K. They do the job. You do not need to have those HDMR cameras that are thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Have a decent presentation. You don't need that. You can, there's a base budget you can get. Like area mics. You gotta make sure you have a directional area mic. This is a Samsung. This is good. I got a J-Talk downstairs. They're all good. If you notice, my guys aren't all wired up downstairs. We're all moving around the table. Like, big area mic, and that's all. That's because I can't have them all on their own headset. It would be a mess. So, that's some of the things that I had to figure out over time. And if you ever watch some of the early streams, man, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. It took time. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Crashes.
Yeah, they are visually beautiful to watch, though. Just seeing the either the battlefields or the towns, like you say, and all the little clever ways that you kind of create like these effects during the games. Yeah.
Yeah, all sorts of things. Yeah, we've come out with a lot of ideas to make it the visual experience that pops. So that you're like, oh wow, look, that the building's on fire. So we've water's been tough, but we got swamps with a lot of that reddening in there. We got all sorts of different type underlays. The underlay mats are important just so just for the setting. It's a lot of work. It takes a couple hours to tear down, a couple hours to set up too.
Yeah,
between them on major changes. So
blimey. That's a lot.
In addition to my real life job,
exactly.
So
see, I thoroughly believe DMing is another job. It has to be the amount of time you put into it.
It is, absolutely. It's another job, but it's a beloved hobby. That's the way I look at it. I will never, ever say I'm a professional DM. I do not want to use that term. That's not me. I DM for the love of it.
Yeah.
And I DM because I really love the game and the setting and the people I meet. And then that's Twitch. Streaming on Twitch is just a bonus. It is. It's an absolute bonus.
Yeah.
So, and that
beautifully said.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's beautifully said. Beautifully put.
And that's a story in itself. So as far as it took me 3.5 years to get partner. It was a long slog, long time. Yeah, absolutely. It was rejected 12 times.
Wow! Oh my gosh. But then it's worth it now that you look back on all of that, seeing how far you have come. Yeah,
opened other doors. And opened doors to communities that I didn't have access to, in particular a lot of the 5e community streamers. It opened some doors.
Yeah. Amazing.
Thanks.
That's all my questions done.
Awesome.
So I think we're moving on to Callum next.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, my first question probably be, because you just mentioned that, your early streams are not like the best, maybe. Yeah. I was just thinking, where would you say is a good jumping on point if you wanted to start watching like the archive streams and stuff? Because obviously there's not 43 years worth of content, so you may be missing some stuff.
Well, so we started in early 2018, and I think it was adventure. This is it's either 821, 22, or 23. So there's 820 adventures that there's nothing to. But there's a lot of storylines that have gone on. The things I would watch are, and I have them on YouTube archived under All-Star Altamira Adventures, because then you see the big names that are playing in the games, and you get to see Todd Stashwick playing. You get to see Luke Gaiax playing, and Eric Moen is the best RPer I've ever had play. And if you didn't watch Puppets and then some, it goes off on a crazy, you'll see, it's whacked. The Darling and Eric and Luke Gygax, the interaction is unbelievable in that fundraiser event. I know there's going to be a lot of dinging for all the all the donations we get and all, but that's the interactive experience. We want to create an entertainment aspect of the game to whoever's watching. As far as storylines go, the best way is the talk shows, because I talk about all the locations and the knighthoods and the classes, and the Gavin shows are based on what goes on mostly in my campaign and special interviews. And the Legends and Lore shows, which are on Wednesday night, they're like in-depth Greyhawk discussion. That's the difference between the two. The third one, the Fantasy Mapping show, is monthly. And if you're into mapping or cartography or want to get into it with Alyssa and Anna, great cartographers, that's a great show to watch too. But the Gavin shows are going to really get into what I'm doing. And you can see, go back, it's all Gavin 1 all the way up to 237. So they're all on Twitch. They're on YouTube, so you can watch them all. And like, oh man, I'm interested in how he does fighters. There's one on fighters, or I'm interested in the Order of Ulick. You can find there's good, whatever topic you've seen in my game, it's gonna be discussed in a Gavin somewhere with that many. And that's what I would do. I watch special game events, and then I watch some of the talk shows just to get a feel for what's going on. Hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, I think you did. Also, why have you stayed in like 1E, 2E, and how's it been weird kind of mixing them together?
No, because 1E, 2E are both considered A, D, and D. If you ever see that term, 2E was an enhancement of 1E, so basically it was we're going to expand on 1E. So 1E, 2E kind of work together. But I use 1E, I go back to 1E based rule set over the 2E based rule set, which is like everything converts into yards. I really don't like that in 2E, so we go back to the 1E on that. 3E came out, and I'm like, no, not again. At this point, it's like 1998, 99. I'm like, no, I'm not going to. I don't like the prestige classes. What the hell is this? I didn't like any of it, but I liked feats. So the feat system in 3E, I incorporate into my proficiency system in 1E, 2E. So now when we take specific feats. I have a whole list of them. And so they can take weapon proficiencies, weapon specialization, and they take feats. Toughness, +1 hit point per level. Defensive training, -1 to your armor class. Spell extension, your spells, certain spells you cast per day, 50% enhanced duration, all different sorts of things. But it did incorporate some 3E stuff in to 1E, 2E. 4E, no. 4E was World of Warcraft, D&D, right? Right. And then 5, I'm not going to bash 5E. 5E brought more people into the game than anything else ever did. But it's not for me. The moving out of engagement is just not realistic to me. Right? You have an ogre here, and I'm moving. I move 10 feet, I attack him, and I move 20 feet and move. I mean, that ogre's going to splat you, right? And we don't do that in 1E, 2E. And but that's okay. People play a different style. It's not a problem. But for me, I've incorporated spells from 3E that I've liked back into my 1E, 2E. So that was where it stopped. That's a great question. Why? And 1E, 2E works with miniatures very well. I figured out how to incorporate the miniature gameplay into 1E, 2E. And that counts for space combat and in the air and in dungeons and outdoors, so yeah.
Yeah. Any of your players, manipulated the rules, to kind of make that something weird happen that shouldn't really happen?
We have, so whenever I incorporated a new spell or magic item, this is what I say, what would Tim do to this? And then what would Alan do to this? Every time I have to figure out how they're going to take this and make it and push it to all the time. Push it to limits. And that's why I have, the Tim loves a good critical heady. We have head emotes of our players. I have myself with a wah on the head from a fumble, and that's why we have our own head emotes to bust ourselves for and Tim's the one that will figure out how to take something and abuse the hell out of it. And then Alan, of course, so we had there's a thing in old school called an arrow of direction. And you ask a question, you throw it up in the air and it points a direction. Like so his one character had it and he did it like 10 times in a row. And then it's like, throw it up the 10th time. Well, it landed on a rock and split and broke. That was it. I had enough of that item. Yeah, so I've dealt with it. I've dealt with it for 43 years. Yes, the min-maxers, but it's part of each person's the way they are, their personality. So, and they're all great players. I'm busting them as much as they bust me. Yeah, exactly. I have to take that in consideration every time.
Is there any of the funniest moments like they've managed to pull it off that you remember?
My gosh. Well, I've had a ton of hysterical moments, but to think specifically on something where they took the rules. Oh yeah, okay. This is a funny one. So Tim's character Fensick, he's now 16th level mage. Rarely gets played, but he actually adventured with Gosumba back in the day. When Tim would DM off a little bit, I'd PC Gosumba and Hawk. They'd be my two characters back then. He had a lightning rod, it was called. So it was like, just like a house light, right? Hold it, and it would, if a lightning bolt or lightning spell got cast on him, it would absorb it, right? So he wouldn't take any damage. So he'd hold this lightning rod out. So we're playing, this is kind of being like 1983 or 84. The wizard spell casts a fireball. And he goes, my lightning rod absorbs it. I'm like, it's a freaking lightning rod, dude. And he goes, well, it absorbs fireballs too. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Yeah. So there you go. So that's what I have to deal with. You don't have a lightning rod that absorbs fireballs. Sorry. But it was written that way. I was like, I don't care. Yeah. So there you go. Yes. You got it. Right. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And that's back when we were in high school. So, but trust me, it still comes up every time. That should really absorb fireballs to this day. So. I still hear it.
Yeah. What have you added to it? Because I saw that you've got something called the hero point system. Is that
hero point?
Yeah.
Hero points are from an article in Dragon magazine back in I'm going to say mid 80s. So what we did was hero points are your ability. It's almost like advantage or edge or whatever you might want to call it in inspiration, right? It's almost like that. But for example, we have, and I expanded it to make it so that it was interactive with the crowd, the viewing audience. So a hero point, say we used to give, before we were streaming, you'd have either half your level or up to your level in hero points. Say you're 6th level, and I gave you half, you had 3. They can be used before die roll's made. They're like your inner ability to as a hero to accomplish something. So say saving throw versus death magic. Oh, I'm going to throw my 3 hero points on that. I don't want to die, or I really need to hit this character. I'm going to add 3 to the hit roll before the dice roll's made. So we still have those regular hero points, and a turn-in of 10,000 bits on Twitch will allow an audience member to assign a regular hero point to a player or to me, because there's some people who really love pumping up the DM. Special points are different. A special hero point occurs on a cheer, a combined total cheer of every 500 bits on Twitch. What they are is they're special. Someone in the audience is contributing dollars for this, so this is how I reward them. Special hero points can be used after the die roll's made. That's the big difference. And it counts as a natural roll. So we have a critical hit and fumble system. Someone rolls a 19 on a die. They add a special hero point to it. It's a natural 20, not a dirty 20, and that's a critical hit. Now, I can undo that with DM specials that I get, or anti-hero points that the audience has given me, and you can see, some of them will race. There'll be a race between someone in the audience will be giving all the players hero specials and giving me, and that's kind of funny and entertaining. But yeah, so specials can be used after the die roll. The only exception to that is we do group initiative. If you're rolling, you may use a special hero point before you roll a die 6, and that'll add to the initiative. So if you roll a 6 with that special, I can't beat you. Another way, that's the only time it's before. But yeah, it's after. You can use them after on saving throws you failed. 1's always a fail on the save, by the way. You can use them on damage or wherever you want to use those points. You can utilize them, and it really has upped the interactive level with the audience. and what we're doing stream wise, and that's another reason why I think we're pretty successful with having some great viewer numbers.
Is there any other mechanics you've changed because of streaming or anything like that?
Figured out how to figure out how to speed up combat. Group initiative, I call who goes next from either front of combat to back or back to front, depending on where the group is. So it's not, and it just has to be that way so that they don't drag out. And plus, if I have 30 miniatures on the field, man, I have to do it that way because it's impossible. If I do it by a dexterity-based individual initiative, there's no way I can keep track of it. It's not like I'm running a VTT where it automatically sets it up, right? And I don't want to be looking at the computer screen to see who goes next. I got enough things going on, trying to keep track of the hero points coming in and also group initiative, and the way who goes in combat's chosen was specifically created because of streaming. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Is there any favorite mechanics that you've made yourself to add to it?
So I really, let me think about this. That's a good question. I like the way that we have created the ability for, I think the balance is really good. So between spellcasters, between the way thieves and rogues in first edition and can sneak up and backstab. By the way, there is no backstabbing with bows and arrows, and you don't get like the flank attack stuff. That's in my opinion, that just doesn't work. There's no shooting in the melee. Well, you can if you shoot in the melee combat, and you have an opponent who's fighting one of your friends, okay, allies, and you shoot in the melee combat, you miss, you're re-rolling on your friend's rear armor class table, shoot them. And it happens all the time, and like Anna Meyer's big on it, and Little Bones, he shoots in melee combat, and usually they hit the opponent, but when they don't, they've got to re-roll, and they're just going to shoot their friends, more than likely. That's a big one, too. We've had that since day one. It's not I don't want the game to be a World of Warcraft style game, right? I want it to have a little bit of a feel of realism to it, but not to the point where it's just chunks the game. And that's the balance. I mean, sometimes you can really slow the game down with adding all different sorts of special things in. Back in the first edition, they had an armor class value change to hit roll based on the weapon and the armor class you used. Man, I've never used that, and I never will. I cannot believe I got a cross-reference a Morningstar with split mail. No, I can't do it. I mean, it'll take way too long. That's one of the biggest rules in old school that no one seems to use. So,
I think my last question is: do your players still surprise you all the time?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah,
all the time. Something will happen. That'll be like the use of a spell outside of the norm, which makes total sense, and so I allow it. A tactical move that I didn't see coming all the time. Something to entrap an evil party or something. Yeah, I mean, just setting a trap, just even a noise trap at the right spot at the right time. They do all sorts. Absolutely, those are good. If you want to watch the games with my stream, you'll realize my players are good players as far as the tactics of the game go. They know exactly, I have to change things up constantly. And that's another thing. You don't want to, as a DM, you won't want to throw the same old against them. You want to change it up. And being a new DM, it's easy, right? Because in a group, I can do this, I can do that. I haven't done it. But for me, in 40 some years, I got to figure out that's why I'm always introducing new monsters, new spells, things that change it up so they don't know it. Oh, it's a magic missile coming at them, So and then that's the thing. You'll see spells cast. You're like, what the heck does that spell do? And when I do that, I'll read the description of the spell in the game. I'll and say, this is you've probably never seen this before, And then a lot of them are. And Ed Greenwood made thousands of spells and books, and you'll see him when he comes on talk shows. And I try and incorporate as many. I don't care if I forgot realm spells. We'll tweak them slightly. Just like think about this. You have Tensor spells, Mordenkainen spells, all Leomund spells, all in 5th edition that are not, they're Greyhawk mages, but you're not playing a Greyhawk game. Leomund Shakura Shelter. How many of you use that, right? Or, that's Leomund was my friend Len Kafka. He passed a few years ago. He was on the Gavin shows like 40 times. What a great guy he was. But he passed from cancer, and his character was Leomund back when he played with Gary Gygax. So and those spells have gone into lore as whole world, So absolutely. Some great questions from everyone so far.
Yeah, well, I think that's me done. So LJ, it's up to you now.
So I'm going to basically talk about the content creator side of like your D&D campaign and everything. So what made you play D&D and what inspired you to play D&D?
All right. So when it came out in 78, and it was so different, the war gamers, you're playing battles, but they never figured out how to use the characters that should be in those armies. And that's kind of where it developed out of. And I was like, that's such a great idea. You'd be able to track the life of your character all the way through from the beginning to the end, almost creating like it's an alternate world. It's a fantasy setting, something that you can do now with that character. And so when Greyhawk came out in 1980, there's a story. The World of Greyhawk Gazetteer here has all this background information about the campaign. And it has this story of what's called the Battle of Emrity Meadows, and it's in year 569 in Greyhawk. And so they say, oh, it's starting 570, 571, 572. And I'm like, no, you know what? We're going to have our characters take place in this epic battle that occurred. It's the forces of good versus the forces of the Temple of Elemental Evil. And that's where we're going to start. And we started there and just worked our way through and the time frame. And it was just like, wow, this is neat. We all have our individual personages, and we're running them through the setting, and like they have good days. It's just like real life. They have good days, they have bad days, and each adventure is like a TV episode, right? A series of episodes, and then but they exist outside of that. That's what I liked about it so much was, I've created my own series. I've created my own television show, right? That had in the Grail campaign, where episode each, that's the way you think about it. And it just, I'm glad that, like I said, I wrote and tracked everything at the beginning, and glad that, fortunate enough to have my friends stay with it, and it grew to the point where it's grown. So people are like, how can you have 27 different adventuring groups? I'm like, because I can, right? I can do whatever I want, And like I said, there's no right or wrong way to play D&D or DM or run a campaign. You can decide to do it however you so choose. And ours is grandiose in scale, and I like it that way, and we all do. I think that answers that question.
Yeah, definitely. Next question is, so what inspired you to make this go public? Like, what inspired you to make your world, like, on a platform that obviously 2018 you started streaming this. So what made you want to share it with the world?
That is an exercise in arrogance by me when you hear the story. It is. So I was thinking about it for a while, because I saw Twitch and I saw all these, and there were some small streamers, and there was some big high rollers had been on, I think, and I don't even know if Critical Role was on. They may have just said come on, in like 2017, and then I see this, and this is I get busted all the time about this. I see a video, and this video comes out. You'll see it every so many months, and I think that's how we got together on this. This video goes back to 2017, the Robert Wardall video.
Yeah.
Right. So this is number. You'll understand the connection now that we started. So the video comes out, and it comes out in a Popular Mechanics link, and then CNN even ran it a couple of years ago, and it's crazy. But longest D&D game ever, that. So, and at this time, he was at year 35 or 36 or whatever when the first original video came out. I'm like, I'll be damned. We've been doing this for 2 years longer than this guy. And that kind of, I don't know. That's it. I was like, I got to do this now. So it took me a few months to get all the equipment together and figure out how I was going to do it. And so that video was the catalyst for me actually getting into streaming. And then that went on, and like I said, I've dealt with it every year. It pops back up somewhere every single year. Wired or Nerdist, it just is like, it never ends. It never ends. And he's got great terrain, and he's got great, I'm not, just besmirching him at all, but it's like, I will always have him by 2 full years, okay? Always, to this day. Now I do not have the longest campaign true in existence. Ed Greenwood's Ed Greenwood has people who play with him in Forgotten Realms still, going back to like 76 or 77. It's just, you got to give Ed his respect. But that started things off. And you would not believe my friend Anna Meyer, when she first met me, said, you do not look like the guy on the video. I thought you were Robert Wardaw. Anna, and I'm like, no, Anna, I'm not. I'm Jay, and stuff. So even Anna misconstrued me for that guy. And I was like, I get it to this day going to cons. You're the guy in the video. Like, no, I'm not that guy in that video. It happens 100 times. Yes. Yeah. But he doesn't stream. He doesn't stream on Twitch. He puts some stuff on Instagram. It's called The Game. And he's got some impressive, he's got like a modern, postmodernistic D&D setup, which is cool. But, yeah, that's it. And I'm like, you know what? Enough of this. So when that happened, we started streaming. 2 of my players weren't thrilled about it, by the way. But they've since come around, with it. And, it's grown since then. And, taking my business acumen, I turned that in. I had 4 or 5 sponsors before I became a partner. Miniature Building Authority was first, then Reaper Miniatures, Troller Games, Stratagem, all came on before I was even a partner, just because of, I knew with our terrain setup, we had something that they would want to advertise. And so that kind of set, and then the 3D print companies came later, and some others like Portrait Works just recently came on. So yeah, but that's where that came from. That's why I started streaming that stupid video, which is how you found me. Isn't that amazing? I think someone else said and linked me to your Twitter.
Yeah.
The ironies.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go back and fix that video now.
No, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's happened a million times. Yeah. It's not a problem.
So going back to how, like, when you started sharing, like, how did you, like, what was your first experience in that content creator space? Like, how did you feel in that moment when you started streaming?
Lost. I had no connections to anyone in any communities. And then, literally we had 3 to 5 people watching, right, at the beginning. And so I had to figure out, how do I branch out and how do I market this? And then I realized I got to do more ads on Facebook, and Twitter was late. I was like, Twitter's a necessary evil, I think. Twitter and Instagram I didn't start with. I did it on Facebook. But then I realized that there were communities, particularly Greyhawk communities, that I had never, we were insulated for, like, I was not part of a Greyhawk community for the first 38 years of our game. We kept to ourselves, mostly intentionally. We were like, yeah, we're just going to play our game and that's it. And I'm like, you know what, that's really not a smart thing. It's my number one regret was not getting involved in the greater community earlier. And once we did that, then the Greyhawk community came on because we had something that they wanted, especially the old schoolers, wanted to watch. And then the second big link was the crafting community on Twitch. All the people do painting, the Reaper miniature people, that, and we have our own crafter, and that kind of crossed over. Any single person who paints miniatures on Twitch was now interested in what we were doing. So that's like how Art of Mike Disney is majorly involved in my channel. Darling Creepshow, she does a lot of painting too. It's just, it goes on and on with that. So I'm good at marketing as far as getting people together and then adding another aspect to our community and growing it, right? And that's kind of where it's going. As you can see, the size of how many people participated in the fundraiser, it's just, but that's what I've done my entire life as far as that way. Just people relationship building, right? That's the main thing. It's been a blast, and but starting off, it was tough. It was tough. There was a rival Greyhawk channel called the Greyhawk channel that everyone flocked to because they were 5e, and that was great. But they kind of self-imploded at some point, and there was only one other Greyhawk streamer at the time, and it was just the two of us out there for most of it. And it was a slog getting up. And I came with the idea. People don't know about my campaign. They don't know that I should have a talk show, and that's how the talk show came out. Plus, if you want to become an affiliate or partner, you got to have so many streams a month, and I was doing one a week on Thursdays. I'm like, this isn't enough. So then we opened up to Sunday, and then when Legends and Lord came about, opportunity, and we did the one. That's when things, all three together. I say I stream 3.5 times a week, because I have the 3 main shows: Legend Lore Wednesday, my game Thursday, Gabbin on Sunday, and then usually a special game every other Saturday, or something special happens like every other week. So that's why I say I have 3.5 streams a week. So yeah, and that's how it came from that point. But I mean, we're in the top 25 of viewer hours watched weekly now in all D&D streams. So, and I'm not an organization. I'm not like, and Critical Role's up here. But that all the other ones, there's a lot of them that full, like High Rollers is a big one, right? Or C&E Games and Rivals of Waterdeep. They're like, big, full entire productions. So when I say of the individuals that are in that top, it's usually myself, Matt Coville, right? He's always like, huge viewer numbers when he's on, and Robert Hartley. They're the 3. Like, we're just people just running our own channels. So yeah, I take a lot of pride in that I've gotten there. Besides, having a full crew of 10 to 20 people behind me, it's just usually me doing. I got mods and do a great job and all, but as far as the production goes, it's all me sitting here doing it. Doing it on XSplit and setting it all up and setting the interviews up and DMing it. It's a lot. So my wife hasn't divorced me yet, though. So. No, I'm just kidding.
Damn, I wasn't expecting that. Oh,
I've been happily married almost 27 years now. So
wow. That's...
Thanks.
I want to ask a question out related. How does she feel about you doing D&D?
I've been doing D&D longer than I've known her.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
I met my wife in like 92. So I've been doing D&D for 14 years before I met her. She knew what she was getting into. That's serious. I mean, we each have our own. She's not a gamer at all. Not at all. No, she has her own thing she does on the side, and I do my thing, and it works. So, yeah.
Fair enough, honestly. So you spoke about your channel. Was this your first channel that you ever came into, or was there any other channels that you had before?
Nope. This was the first. I was like, I'm just going to start this up and see where it goes, The first year was rough. First year was really rough. And I was like, man, we got to figure out how, like, if you're a live streamer, this is just for me. This is me babbling now about, when you get to 30, you can get a little traction at 30 viewer average, because then people will start seeing you in your top 10, 20 or whatever on that category. Now I'm talking D&D now. I'm not talking video game streaming, which is completely different. But you got to figure out how to get them from 30 viewer average to 75 viewer average, right? And that's not easy to do because there's so many streamers out there and there's so many channels now. When I started back in 2018, I think on a Saturday night, there were probably 50 D&D channels live streaming. There's like 500 now on a Saturday night, right? It's tough. For someone to break in new, I don't know how you would do it. It's tough going now. You really have to differentiate yourself. I always tell everyone you have to create a niche. If you're just like every other channel, you're gonna have a small audience of 10 to 15, maybe 20 viewers, and that's it, because you got to differentiate yourself. It's not easy. It's a tough road. But the thing is, you get into communities. You join some communities based on a common goal, and that's what you do. And then everyone promotes everyone else, and that's how you get kind of grow your numbers.
I agree. Like, it is very difficult. Me and Corg kind of stream on the side on our video game side, so we do understand how difficult it is. It must have been very difficult for you. So why did you choose? I'm going to butcher your name here. Why did you choose the name Lord Gosumba?
It's the name of a nickname for some bizarre reason of a guy on our track team back in high school. And I just was like, he's a fighter. Back in the old days, you have multi-class characters where the levels all go up at the same time. He's a half-elf fighter cleric mage. So I had two characters. I had a fire thief, hawk, and Gosumba fighter cleric mage. So they were like the basis for what, my PC. So whenever I didn't want to DM and off the side, Tim would run something, and he'd run something on the eastern side of Greyhawk for the most part. So it didn't interfere with my campaign. I'd run those two characters. He'd have Fensick and Leuven, and Walt would have some other characters, and that was it. And that's kind of grew up with that character. And so now he's the head of the Order of Ulick. He's the leader of the Knighthood organization. So, and he's like a, I don't know, 12, 13 or whatever fighter cleric mage, which is pretty powerful in old school 1E2E. Yeah, and that's how that happened. And so I just decided, I didn't know what to name the stream, so that's what I named it. I named it, hey, this will be unique. Plus, you got to find a name that no one else has taken, right? I knew no one else would have taken that. And so back in the day when we were struggling, I had suggestions, well, change it to the Order of Ulick or Knights of Ulick. And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm just going to stick with this. I'm going to stick with this name because people will remember it because it's a little bizarre, but that's what happened. So I stayed with it. And now people call me that out there all the time. At conventions or wherever, so it's fine. It's just a character.
Nice. So as you have in your background, you have your logo, you have it on your shirt as well. We discussed this before we got on this interview. So what inspired you to make that logo there?
Okay, so the color symbols are based on what would pop, all right, in that. So, we got a red and a gold, but there's some items in the order. This is a long sword, but it's kind of like what's called a planar blade, where think of it as a freaking longsword lightsaber, all right, back in the Monty Hall days. And then this is a hammer of thunderbolts. So it's basically a longsword crossed with a hammer. And that's how the Order of Ulick, two major weapons that characters in the campaign were using at the time in the Order of Ulick. So had to come up with something, and we had a sketch drawn, and that sketch lasted for 30 years before I'm like, you know what, I got to market myself better. Heraldry. So I'm thinking to myself, I need to create a heraldic symbol instead of just having a sketch of of a sword crossed with a hammer. I got to turn it into Greyhawk is known for its heraldry, and that's where Anna came in, figured out let's do this. A gentleman named Brian Blumklotz helped me, and we created the heraldic symbol. And then there's sub symbols based on the regions, like in the Vestry Forest, there'll be green around it, and some other symbols based on where the order is, like substation. So we have like 5 or 6 heraldic symbols because heraldry is huge in Greyhawk, and that helped. With visibility 100%. So whenever I go to a con or wherever I'm at somewhere, I wear one of the collared shirts with this, and immediately I'm in a crowd, immediately recognized. At Gen Con, you'd be surprised. oh my God, there's Lord Gosumba shirt, right? Just because of the stupid logo on the shirt. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, marketing yourself is key, just like anything else. You gotta figure out how to, market yourself with the point of not, going overboard. And I've kind of figured that out. And then, like I said, the community was kind enough to make this for me after the first virtual Grey Con because they had so much fun with it. And this year in October, first week in October, is our 4th virtual Grey Con. So, yeah, and that was very kind of them to create that shield for me. So now of individual families, the Free City of Altamira, which by the way is now Lord Games is going to publish it. Okay, so my city's going to get published, and it's going to be where I put that in his world of air for Lord, so that's going to be awesome. But we have this heraldic symbols for the city for certain individuals. It's grown where we have a lot more heraldry. You'll see in my game that the heraldry scroll through of all my unique pieces of heraldry so, and it's just another aspect of the game. I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. I love hearing these stories anyway. So going back to like streaming and being on actual stream and playing the game, is there one most memorable moment that you have from streaming of the games? Like, what was the best moment for you?
It's a good question. No one's ever asked me that one. I got to think about that. I kind of, we did early on an entire siege at one of the Order of Eula keeps at Winchester's Bulwark, which is, and I had the entire keep, walls on the table, and for weeks there were attacks, waves of attacks with siege at towers and stuff. I don't know if it was a good viewing thing, but it was fun to do. And that's when my friend Tom, who hadn't played in a while, he actually came back because of that. And I think that was, I'm going to say that was fall of 2018 that happened that long ago. That was a blast. But the things I really enjoyed was we have, during every virtual GradCon now, we have the Grand Joust of Altamira, where we have a jousting competition. And this year I had 20 participants. So I had 20 people on Zoom, and including Luke Gygax. And it was just, and his character, by the way, Melf Sassadaro. Okay, that's his original Melf. Take the M off. Melf, male elf. That's why he's named Melf, by the way, when he was a kid. So Melf is, we have, because I can't use, Melf is owned, WotC Hasbro owned, but no one owns the son of Melf in the game, so Eleador is his name, but we jokingly call him Smelf, son of Melf, right? All right. So he's, but that thing, I love putting that together, and the competition's really cool, the visuals are unbelievable, and everyone has fun with it, so I love doing the Grand Joust of Altamira. It's one of the funnest things we've ever done via stream. And just so many people can being in that, and they go at each other. They're rivals, and yeah, so that was a blast. And the last one we did on that was last year's virtual GradCon. So if you go in the YouTube vids, if you want to go, you go to Altamira All Star Adventures. You'll be able to find last year's Grand Joust if you want to take a look. Yeah, really neat stuff.
I'll definitely go have a look after this. Yeah. So you said about sponsorships, how you have a lot of sponsorships. So do you remember your first sponsorship, and like how did they approach you, or did they approach you, or did you approach them, and like how did it come about as well?
A good question. So 2018, I'm thinking to myself, I need to figure out, number one, I'm doing this because it's an expensive hobby, but I'll get more visibility if I have people have actual sponsors. Hey, they don't need to be partners, right? No, I'm figuring to myself, why can't I get sponsors? So my buddy Mark I didn't go to Gen Con in 2018, but my buddy Mark was going there. A company that I had known, and I had known Kirk since 2000 when he started, Miniature Building Authority. Have you ever seen like that? If you look recently, all those large resin cast buildings are pre-painted. That's Miniature Building Authority. They were my first sponsor. So I said to Mark, Mark, you're going to Greyhawk, you're going to Gen Con, go to Kirk's booth and introduce yourself and just say, I want to talk to him about sponsorship. And immediately when he heard what we were doing on Twitch, he was like, no brainer. So I got Miniature Building Authority first because I would use their stuff for years, so he knew me. But then I wanted a big fish, and so it took a while. I wanted Reaper. That's the one I wanted, right? Because Reaper Miniatures is such a huge. I mean, I know they sell in the UK too, so they're a huge company. And then it happened that one of their executives saw a post I had done on Facebook about a game I was doing in Greyhawk, and he loved Greyhawk, and he reached out to me about it, saying, I'd never heard of that adventure. Could I get it for him? And then I said, well, yeah, but I've been trying to figure out a way for you guys, and that's how that connection came. So technically but he reached out to me for something else. And then I eventually, when I made partner, man, I got bombarded with opportunities, and I look for those that do something that we do in the game. Now, I have a great dice. I have Stratagem/Wiz dice. They're wonderful. And I got them almost a year after I got Miniature Building Authority, were my second sponsor. Reaper was my third. But they, 3D print companies, I have two of them. We have the Portrait Works company now, so we do the custom portraits on characters. I always look for sponsors. I don't want an energy drink company sponsoring me, okay? I just don't see what that has to do with. I'm not trying to sound smart here, but I want companies that are going to further enhance what we do, and that people in my game, people who are watching, are going to use the product. So when I do giveaways, when we do a giveaway almost every stream, they get the benefit of it. And then Troller Games, I've known Chuck for a long time, but I was like, Chuck, I don't use your stuff. I don't use Castles and Crusade system. I feel bad taking it. So for 2 years, Chuck was on me, dude, come on. And then I finally said, you know what? I like some of your adventures. I'm going to incorporate your adventures into my Grail campaign setting. That's how Troller Games came on, and they've been great. And now they're going to publish, they're going to publish my city. So, yeah, it's been blessed. So that
sounds amazing.
So I always say this to other streams when they ask advice. How do I get someone to sponsor me? And I use one word answer, and that's ask. Ask them. So what if they say no? You have to sell yourself. You have to promote yourself. Just ask. That's how I got a lot of my sponsors. Was I reached out, figured out who to contact, and I asked. So, yeah. And there's got to be a lot of great ones. I mean, there's some unbelievable terrain companies out in the miniature companies and all sorts of stuff in the UK. Some really good, just ask. Go to cons too. Go to conventions where they are at, where they have their booths. There's no one in Cork. There's a con every year in Cork. It's a big one. Because the Cork organization has always asked me to, I'm like, I don't know how I can't fly to there. I'd love to, but I can't, that's just not in the cards. But yeah, I know that's a big one that's annual, and I imagine a lot of those companies they have booths there, and that's how you reach out. You introduce yourselves and say what you're about, and yeah.
So answering that question, we're going to go to the flip side. So with these sponsorships, is there any that were sour or had fallen through? And what was your experience with that?
So, good question. I've had a couple that said outright no. But when I have set these up front, I tell them exactly what I want. And I want, number one thing, I want an open communication channel. I don't want to have to send an email and get a response back in a month. And so far, every single one I've had have been great people, great companies, and they immediately respond. I have phone numbers, right? I can get in touch with them. And so I have not dumped a sponsor since I started, because I researched and I personally picked who we were going to work with. And I picked smaller companies. I tend to try and pick US-based companies, especially for shipping. Now, one of my 3D print companies, Infinite Dimensions, is in Canada, but their STL files are mostly giving me, and that's digital, right? So I try and pick US-based companies just for the fact of I don't want to have them to spend thousands, a lot of money on shipping stuff overseas or whatever. But I took time. I went for a smaller company, especially in 3D print. I found two of them that are very, very lean and mean, but their content is exactly what I need for my table. And that's why I picked them over a bigger company. And they've been fantastic, and they've both grown tremendously since the partnership has happened. And that's what I would recommend. I mean, you don't have to go for the big fish all the time. I went for Reaper because we use their product so much, but there's got to be a ton of other smaller companies out there doing 3D print minis, or there's companies out there that are, dice manufacturers. You just do your research and then approach them. Yeah. I've been very fortunate with them, but I've had one big one. I won't say who it is out there that I've tried for years and I haven't gotten anywhere with. So, and that's the one that I've worked on. But hey, I'll take my success rate so far. So, yeah, and that's helped. The amount of stuff I give away to my viewers, and the amount of they all stepped up for sponsorships for the fundraisers, and that made it, fantastic. As far as we had some great items to give away this year. The biggest ticket item we had this year was a first edition player's handbook signed by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. I mean, the two founders, and they both are passed. That was donated from Jeremy from Gamescape 3D. So one of my sponsors gave me that book and said, "Hey Jay, it's just sitting on my a shelf." I'm like, "Oh, okay, you're really gonna give us that?" I mean, that's, who knows how much that thing's worth? Probably $3,000 is my guess. And he gave it, to one of the top donors, got that as a gift, and that really helps. So they're just one, I try and work with people who I can respect and mutually respect each other, and that it is a pleasure to work with. That's another thing. You want to find someone who has some communication skills. Yeah.
I believe that's the end of our questions.
Wow.
Jay, we want to say thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate your time and giving us the chance to interview you. You've got a couple of seconds, however minutes, blah, 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 to shout out whatever you want to do.
So I appreciate that. I stream on Wednesday evenings at 8. This is all Eastern Standard Time, U.S. 8 o'clock's Legends and Lore on Wednesday. Thursday night's my normal game, 7:30 7:30 Eastern. Sunday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern is Gabbin, and that is a discussion of my campaign or a fun topic usually. And then our special events usually are on Saturdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, so we run 4 hours. I should have one next Saturday on the 11th, still working on that. And then all the other things going on, I'll be at GaryCon in 3 weeks, and I'll be doing a lot there. That's the celebration for Gary Gygax. It's the 15th anniversary, 15th one. I'm there a full week. We'll have our 1,000th adventure soon. I'll be promoting that. We're at 991 now. I can't even estimate now. It's going to be June or July is my guess. We'll do our 1,000th adventure. I really thank you for your time, so much so that I want to invite all 4 of you to play in one of my games together.
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
So
That
much.
would be That'd be amazing.
Sunday morning, so the time difference works, right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. We'll
Yeah.
set it up probably in April, okay, after
Mhm.
that. And we'll get your characters together, and we'll have your own adventuring group. I'll make it very basic. Don't worry.
Amazing.
I calculate all the rules and we'll figure out the characters you want to play in the old school setting, and it'll be
Mhm.
great. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. But that'll work. I'm looking forward to DMing for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Of course, my pleasure. I always love bringing new people into the community, and also having them experience an old school game, so you get a real perspective on how it evolved into 5e. So and that gives you, and you'll see the nuances and the differences in the rules.
Mhm.
Absolutely,
It's gonna be
I'll
interesting.
let you get to play a game with miniatures and terrain.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Awesome.
Amazing.
We'll definitely set that up.
Mm-hmm.
We'll check in April a date that works for everyone, and
Mm-hmm.
then we'll set that up and we'll live stream that. It'll be a blast.
Oh, perfect.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Thank you all. These are great questions.
Thank you for having us. Like, we really do appreciate it. So that sums it up. Thank you all so much for your love and support. We really do appreciate it, guys. Thank you again. Remember, it's D&D for me and you. Take care. We'll see you in the next one.
See ya.